For the One, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of Guidance. La, illah, la, illah, la, illah, illah, la. La ilaha la ilaha la ilaha illallah la ilaha la ilaha la ilaha illallah. La ilaha la ilaha la ilaha illallah la ilaha la ilaha illallah illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, 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 illallah. In each exhalation, thinking the words La ilaha, just that much. And on each exhalation, let yourself release just a little bit more of whatever is weighing on the heart, whatever's been in your day right up to this moment, whatever it is that you're going to be doing after this moment, whatever your plans are. Just let them fall from you like the needles on your Christmas tree. Let anything that's not alive and supported by life force just fall from you. And for the nonce, don't try to put something in its place, but just savor the ambiguity. Because in the ambiguity, there's great freedom. And it's possible for us to release enough of our nonsense about ourselves that we become largely undetermined. There are, of course, restraints in 3D reality, but those can have less and less effect upon our felt identity. We can enter a mode of knowing that is not determined by those constraints, not steered by them, not boxed in by them. As Rumi says, if I can remember it, take someone who doesn't keep score, is trying to gain things or afraid of losing, who has not even the slightest interest in his own personality. He's free. So just imagine what it might be to how you might live if you weren't defended, if you weren't, as he says, knocking at the door of gain and loss. If you felt so much love, but there wasn't much room for anything else. That's the condition of the awakened ones. And that's humanity's divine inheritance, all of us. So keep thinking La ilaha and just gradually sloughing yourself of contrivance. As Rumi says, a journey to the sea is horses and fodder and contrivance. So in one sense, that's all the spiritual practice. It's part of the journey. It's our practices are the part of the supply wagons of the caravan. But it lands and footsteps vanish. And part of the purpose of spiritual practice is to make those little mini vanishments so that meeting of the sea, the entering of the sea, becomes more and more profound and happens oftener and oftener. So the words of Piro-Murshid Inayat Khan. Meditation is the name given to the process of stilling the mind, which is most important in spiritual development. Without this stilling of mind, the divine spirit does not manifest in the personality, for otherwise one is held in the sway of the ego. Both quieting of mind and body and the soothing of the emotions are necessary if one desires to become a master, which is to say, if one wishes to avoid the jarring disturbances of life which disturb most people. In order to meditate, attention is first given to the body to see that it is relaxed yet comfortable. Sitting in too soft a chair may make one too drowsy, while too hard a chair may make one uneasy. A moderate degree of composure is desirable, whether one is seated or in posture. The room should be neither too hot nor too cold, and it is generally best if one is not too hungry. Although meditation after a full meal is not so easy nor always so advantageous. One should learn to breathe rhythmically and to refine the breath by the process called safa, S-A-F-A. And it literally means purification. In this respect, the Sufi meditation differs from that of the Buddhists, for the Sufis use the names of God, which is to say the 99 names or attributes offered in the Quran, or repeat some sacred phrase which helps refine the breath. The refinement of breath is a balm to the body and also a chain upon the ego, which seeks refuge in the mind as the body is brought into control. The doors of the senses should be held closed. Shutting the eyes partly or entirely is beneficial. The room should not be too brightly lit nor too dark, but it is by self-control that one must shut out other disturbances. Nevertheless, especially for the beginning, a quiet place is desirable. Rhythmic breath holds the mind in place also. Keeping the thought of God before one refines the breath. Sufis practice esotericism mostly, which has the same general effect as silent meditation. But when they meet in groups or when strangers are present, such methods are undesirable. I'm going to come back to that because that takes a little bit of decoding. However, if one can maintain a calm, rhythmical, and refined breath after a time, one will not even have to keep the thought of God before oneself. Thus, one becomes an empty cup. In meditation, one keeps the cup empty. One empties the mind of everything. Meditation is verily the fasting of the mind. So this is actually the same discourse taken down by a different transcriber. The first thing that is necessary in meditation is to realize it is an act of attunement with God. Therefore, while it is necessary to relax, while it is important to control the emotions and the functions of the mind and body, it is also important to raise, so to speak, the pitch of the heart so that this attunement can be accomplished. It is first necessary to relax the body, to be comfortable, but not to sit in too soft a chair or to lie down. For while the body is resting in meditation, it is not the same condition as in sleep. The reason is that the body is also in meditation. The body also breathes. It breathes through the pores of the skin, and it is necessary to keep the whole body in meditation. This is impossible while lying in a covered bed or among soft cushions. As mystical training is to make the body the temple of God, the body must not be neglected. Neither must the mind be neglected. It is not enough to subdue thought, it is to raise the pitch. Although it may be said that to overcome one's thoughts, to become master of one's mind is most difficult, one must face that battle. If one passes into sleep or into dream or musing state, the mind is relaxed, but it is not properly relaxed. This is running away from the battle, thinking one has won it. One may think that one has won the battle, but what has been won? The answer is easily seen when one looks at the great tasks which have been accomplished after meditations, which show that meditation is a positive action, not merely a relaxation. So the fakir may resemble, so to speak, a strainer or colander through which much passes and which retains nothing. He is also a cup which must empty itself to be filled. And of what cup? And what does the cup of the Sufi empty itself? First, it empties itself of itself. When this is understood, such legends as those of the cup of Jamshid and the miraculous pitcher of Baucis and Philemon become clear. The pitcher will hold milk no matter how often it is emptied, and the crystal cup of Jamshid is always full of wine, which is divine love. The same is seen in the stories of Christ dividing loaves and fishes. So the first one. Meditation is the name given to the process of stilling the mind, which is most important in spiritual development. Without this stilling of mind, the divine spirit does not manifest in the personality, because this is a path of embodiment. The divine spirit does not manifest in the personality, for otherwise one is held in the sway of the ego. Both quieting of mind and body and the soothing of the emotions are necessary if one desires to become a master, which is to say, if one wishes to avoid the jarring disturbances of life which disturb most people. In order to meditate, attention is first given to the body to see that it is relaxed yet comfortable. Sitting in too soft a chair may make one too drowsy, while too hard a chair may make one uneasy. A moderate degree of composure is desirable whether one is seated or in posture. The room should be neither too hot nor too cold, and it is generally best if one is not too hungry, although meditation after a full meal is not so easy nor always so advantageous. One should learn to breathe rhythmically and to refine the breath by the process called safa. So what he's talking about here is what in modern terms, especially in light of what's been discovered about the nervous system and trauma over the last 10 or 20 years, he's talking about nervous system regulation. And so in a regulated state, emotions are very even and they don't have wide amplitude. And a little bit additional of my commentary in this regard. There's a trope of sorts that's popular in the new age right now, where one sees these people, especially people in the coaching industry, being kind of jazzed up and full of life, and that's what they're selling, is that you can become that way. That's not a regulated state. It's actually a dysregulated state. One should learn to breathe rhythmically and to refine the breath. In this respect, the Sufi meditation differs from that of the Buddhists. For the Sufis use the names of God, which is to say the 99 names or attributes offered in the Quran, or repeat some sacred phrase which helps to refine the breath. This refinement of breath is a balm to the body and also a chain upon the ego. Actually, the word that he uses here is nafs, which also means breath, which seeks refuge in the mind as the body is brought into control. So it's a very common experience when people start to meditate. In the beginning, days, months, years, maybe years of meditation practice, that as soon as the body is stilled, the mind just goes nuts. So there's this janky energy that most people just walk around in and walk around as. And we all know somebody who doesn't feel alive or even real unless they're reacting against something and having some kind of upset or some issue. And so when the body is held still, all that wild energy goes into the roof brain, and the mind becomes even more disordered. So there's different methods of dealing with that. One of them, which is more Buddhist, is to keep bringing the attention back to the raw sensation of the physical body, starting with the raw sensation of the body breathing. And that can help to pull all of this wild energy out of the thoughts and bring more fluidity rather than jankiness to the emotional content of our experience. And gradually, the body is trained to be still, and the mind is trained to become less grabby on this and that and every other experience, to just let things flow. And to settle into this condition where things are just uncomplicated. And that's very powerful in promoting a regulated nervous system. What the Sufis do is link a divine name, we call them the divine names, with the breath, either to be intoning that name or a formula of some kind, like we were doing before I started this discourse. And there's often some kind of bodily motion that goes with that, that's very helpful for like anchoring the energy of that sacred phrase into the body and to keep the life force moving and stay grounded. And the various movements that we do also have to do with harmonizing the way that the life force, the breath, moves on the two sides of the body. So there are these bifurcations of a sort at a subtle energy level, which also reflect in the personality, or sometimes the right side and the left side don't talk to each other very much, or the upper and lower halves of the body don't talk to each other very much or very well. And then there's movements diagonally. And all of these motions that we do help to sync those things up and bring greater integration. And in addition to these phrases helping to set the nervous system into a certain tone, and to regulate the sympathetic and the parasympathetic so that there's fluidity between them, and there's this pendular movement between them that also promotes nervous system regulation. So it's not fixed. So many people in this society are dominated by their sympathetic nervous system. So there's motion there's energy, there's hypervigilance. That's on one hand. Sometimes the parasympathetic is more dominant. So there can be a dampened affect. There can be depression. And these are two examples of kind of fixed states. And this practice that in this cycle of humanity we're calling Sufism is to promote fluidity. So in putting a name of God, and I'm just using that because it's a traditional descriptor, you don't have to believe in God to do this work. If you believe in yourself, that's enough, even just a little bit. And each of these 99, which is a code word, it's not literal, divine names or divine attributes, the words have a particular and predictable effect on consciousness. They don't all have the same effect, although most of them do have the effect when they're intoned out loud or put into the swing of the breath by simply thinking the word on the inhale or the exhale or both, of regulating the nervous system, but also in making our personality and our felt identity more permeable to something that's larger than ourselves. And each of these divine names is a particular direction or mode that consciousness itself takes, and which is part of our divine inheritance. And so one does the divine name, one uses the divine name in this way based on having been prescribed that name by one's teacher, or a name that one has done on retreat, and you feel a certain resonance with it, and there's a sense that one's being becomes more and more suffused with that particular quality. So that's an expanded explanation of what he's talking about when he speaks of the ways that the Buddhists and the Sufis differ in their manner of practice. Rhythmic breath holds the mind in place also. So again, the rhythmic breath is not necessarily the tempo of respiration. That's one level. It's also the most superficial level. The rhythmic breath is when the life force is moving smoothly without a lot of ripples, without a lot of noise. And one feels this as a sense that the body is all of a piece and that there's this flow continually through the whole body. It's like the body doesn't feel solid in the same way. It doesn't feel heavy, although it can feel very grounded and very substantial. Um, it's not dense. It's not unmoving. There's a feeling that the body is spacious inside, spacious and fluid, and perhaps an odd sensation that the inside is somehow larger than the outside. And in meditation, one is just breathing that, breathing it in, breathing it out. And there's a feeling of softness and of permeability, but also very presential and alive. Rhythmic breath holds the mind in place, keeping the thought of God before one refines the breath. Sufis, now here's that phrase that I was going to come back to because it does need some unpacking. Sufis practice esotericism mostly, which has the same general effect as silent meditation. Okay, so he's referring back to that place where he said the Sufis use the names of God. But when they meet in groups or when strangers are present, such methods are undesirable. Well, I'm breaking the rules here because I don't think it's undesirable anymore. May have been the case in his time, but I feel called upon, and have for quite some time, to jailbreak these teachings from the accretions of ritual and patriarchy that has been part of the packaging material. And it's time that goes away. However, if one can maintain a calm, rhythmical, refined breath after a time, one will not even have to keep the thought of God before oneself. Thus, one becomes an empty cup only. One becomes an empty cup only. One of those delightful Indian English locutions. In meditation, one keeps the cup empty. One empties the mind of everything. So the emptying of the mind can be done by simply stopping thinking. That's a possibility. It's a capacity that can be developed. Or one can fix one's attention on something other than the content of one's mind and just let the mind do what minds do because minds do that thing. And simply not attach to it. One of the images that's often given in Buddhist context is that you regard the mind as a stream flowing by, and you're sitting on the bank of the stream and there's little bits of, sticks and leaves and things floating by, or you're staring into the sky and your mind is the sky and the clouds are your thoughts, and they come and they go and they change. And, 1 minute it's a elephant and the next minute it's a dog, and then it's a whatever it becomes. And that works. And as he's saying in this discourse, the Sufi method tends to be inviting into one's being, including one's mind, the beingness of a sacred phrase or a power word. And there's a beingness in those which is self-subsisting beyond time and space. And when we invoke the presence of that beingness through the word that is its body in space-time, we become the vehicle of that. And it takes up more and more space in our innerscape. And as it's been said, when the secret of God enters the heart, all the petty secrets have to move out. So again, when the Sufis say the breath, they're meaning that movement of light and life force and intelligence that animates your whole human incarnation. And that life force flows from the unseen into our embodiment. And it also returns. And we can shift our felt identity into any point in that stream moving between the unmanifest and our human beingness. And it's part of mastering our vehicle that we are able to exercise some choice about where our default mode of knowing lands along that continuum of consciousness and that stream of life and light and awareness that moves between all of the planes. And as I mentioned, and as I've mentioned in this connection at other times, the Sufis call the breath and the ego by the same term, nafs, N-A-F-S. And there's a great secret in that. But that's another class. Actually, it's the whole practice. You get that one and you become a truly free being. So got a few minutes before the official end of the class. I want you to get your money's worth. So we'll do some more zikr. So notice as we're doing this, or probably afterwards, because the effects that these practices have are not necessarily dramatic. Sometimes they're insidious, and you don't know until afterwards how much your consciousness is shifted. So don't try to steer it too much. Don't try to get into some state that you think is meditation, but just let the practice carry you. Empty the mind, stay centered in the heart insofar as you can. And just allow yourself to be guided. Allow yourself to be carried. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. آمنه لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la illallah, la illallah, la illallah, la illallah, la illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la illallah, la ilaha 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 illallah, la illallah, la ilaha 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 illallah, 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 illallah.